Hey everyone, it's Justine and welcome to a new video. Today I'm going over 10 ways to use perfect pearls. Perfect pearls can be used in so many ways. They're a very versatile and affordable medium. They've been on the market for years and years, and there's so much you can do with them. Perfect pearls have been in my craft room for as long as I can really remember, and oftentimes we forget about those things that have been on the market for a long time, and we're always concentrating on the new things. So I'm so excited to bring you 10 ways to use perfect pearls today, and I hope I can convince you to dig them out of your drawer, or maybe if you're new to crafting, you're just discovering them because they don't show up in many videos anymore, I find. But overall, you can really do a lot with them. So let's dive in and get started.
So the first way we're going to use perfect pearls is the way that they were actually intended to be used. I'm going to be using the XOXO stamp from scrapbook.com, and I'm inking it up with some Versamark ink. Any embossing ink is fine. I'm going to push down on my stamp positioner to stamp this here. I'm using the Misty stamping tool today, and I'm going to lift up. This is super easy, just normal stamping, but it is clear at the moment, so it might be a little hard to see. I'm now going to go ahead and grab the pink Gumball Perfect Pearls powder, and I'm going to rub it in with a soft bristled brush. There's actually, if you buy the Perfect Pearls, they come in 3 packs a lot of the times with a brush already in there. Those brushes are good and they're meant for perfect pearls, but any sort of soft, dry brush will work. You don't want any water on your brush at this point in time. So you're just going to rub the powder into the stamped image, and you'll notice it'll stick right over top of the stamped image, but it might stick a little bit onto the regular cardstock. So just go ahead and brush it with your dry brush. I just brush it right back into the jar, and then I just kind of go quickly back and forth over top of the image to remove any excess powder that might have stuck. In order to set the powder, you're going to grab a spray bottle and just spritz it into the air, and then just wave your cardstock through it. I kind of do it just once or twice, and that works fine. I'm using the new spray bottles from scrapbook.com, but any spray bottle will do. Now it's set and it won't rub off on your fingers. Off screen, I've gone ahead and attached this to a card base that measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, the same 80-pound Nina Solar White cardstock, and I'm using some vintage drops in black board to add a little bit of interest to the card, since it's very, very clean and simple at this point. So I'm just adding 3 dots here on the top and 3 dots over on the side. Here's a final look at this card here.
I also wanted to mention that today's video is a collaboration. So while I'm working with perfect pearls, I'm also creating some Valentine's Day cards, since that holiday is coming up soon. But all the techniques that I'm showing off today you can use anytime. Now I'm doing a collaboration today with my good friend Laurel Beard, who's also creating Valentine's Day cards on her channel. So if you'd like to check them out, I have a link below in the video description if you'd like to check out her video when you're finished with mine.
The next method is stenciling. Now I'm going to go ahead and grab the Catherine Pooler Loop Braid Stencil. You can do this on white or black cardstock. Today in the video I'm going to show you on white cardstock, but the piece I ended up using for my card in the finished piece is on the black cardstock. So just line it up here using your paper and your grid mat if you need some help, and I'm using purple tape to secure the stencil to my surface. With that Versamark ink that I used at the beginning technique, I'm just going to go ahead and smush this through the stencil. I always tell people you need to push a little bit harder than you normally would on a regular stamp pad, because it's got to go through the layer of the stencil and onto the cardstock. Then you can remove your stencil and add your perfect pearls on top. I'm going to use 2 colors, the pink Gumball, which you've already seen me use, and the second color I'm going to use is Grape Fizz. What I love about perfect pearls is they're super inexpensive, so you can have quite a few different colors if you like. I also added in a pop of red, but I didn't care for it in the end, so I ended up just cutting that part off. Now remember I said you could also do it on black cardstock, which is what I'm showing you here. I've also cut down this panel a little bit and set it onto my card panel that measures 4 by 5 1/4 inches. I'm now going to take this die from Catherine Pooler Designs. This is from the Happy X3 dies, and I'm going to die cut that on white cardstock. Additionally, I'm stamping this Catherine Pooler So Happy Sentiments. This also coordinates with that happy die, and I had stamped the To Have You in My Life with some black ink. Moving on to the next technique now, this is multicolor perfect pearls, so adding multiple colors of perfect pearls. We technically did this on the stencil as well when I was stenciling it, but I wanted to count it as a technique. So on my sentiment here, I grabbed my die cut and I grabbed the same two colors as I did earlier, the Grape Fizz and the pink Gumball, and I just brushed it across the sentiment. Don't forget to give it that spritz of water as well in order to set it on there. So once everything was finished, I was able to put my card together. So I added the stencil piece onto my back cards, onto the cardstock. I added the sentiment and then To Have You in My Life, and I added it to a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 card base. So here's a final look as to what that card looks like here with all that beautiful shine from the perfect pearls. I wish it would capture better on photography.
My question of the day today is, do you make Valentine's Day cards and who do you make them for? So I don't generally send a lot of Valentine's Day cards, but I do like to make them for some close friends and colleagues. I also make one, of course, for my partner, but I think he really enjoys getting a Valentine's Day card, but overall I like giving them to my gal pals too, and just kind of bringing out that kid part of Valentine's Day that maybe has been forgotten over a long time. So let me know in the comments below if you send Valentine's Day cards yourself, or if it's something that you create but you never send them, or it's something that you kind of just say, hey, it's not for me.
Now the next technique's one of my favorites with perfect pearls. It's the Perfect Pearls Resist. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a piece of gray cardstock and I'm going to cover it in Versamark ink. So I'm actually making an entire card panel that is covered in perfect pearls. Now this is going to give you a little bit of a mixed media look. So you can see it's not perfect on there at all. And I'm going to go in with this really cool sentiment stamp set. This is from the Ink Road called Subway Art Love. It's been in my stash forever and I've been meaning to use it, but I haven't had a chance. And what's cool about it is it has a whole bunch of famous love story movie quotes on it in subway tile form. So once again, I'm inking up with Versamark ink and I'm going to stamp my background. Now, if you feel like it hasn't taken enough of the perfect pearls off of your background, you can go ahead, clean your stamp, and stamp again. Now, I took my card panel that I'm going to use today, the 4 by 5 1/4 inch, and I've cut it using the Heffy Doodle stitched background die, so it adds some stitched hearts in the background. There's nothing actually cut out. And I grabbed the panel that I cut earlier that I'd stamped, and I cut it down a little bit, and I'm going to add these both onto my card base. You can see that I've added the happy die cut here, in which I had inked up with lipstick ink from Gina K Designs, and I die cut it, and You Make Me So comes from that same Catherine Pooler set that we used earlier in the video, the So Happy Sentiments. I think this looks really fun and a really different look than what I usually go for. Now in my next technique, I'm going to take this exact same technique and take it a step further, the Perfect Pearls Resist, while adding multiple colors. So I'm working again on that same gray cardstock, and I am going ahead and I'm stamping the Altenew Snapdragon Stamp. I recommend doing this technique with a layering stamp. It works really well. Inking up with Versamark ink, once again, I'm going to stamp that first layer onto my cardstock. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab the second layer and line it up on my stamp. Before I do that though, I need to cover my stamp in Perfect Pearls, of course. The color I'm using here is Perfect Pearls, is what it's called. It's the original Perfect Pearls color in the pearly white color. So I've colored the first layer of my stamp with the Perfect Pearls, and don't worry about moving your cardstock around a little bit because you can always put it back in the corner of the MISTI and it's back in its place. I'm going to remove the layer die and add the second layer, and I'm going to line it up. It might not look like it's easy to see on screen, but it is really easy to see in real life. I'm going to grab the Versamark ink and stamp it, and that's automatically going to lift the Perfect Pearls off of my stamp. So it gives it a really cool look. Not only that, the Perfect Pearls is now wet again because of the Versamark ink that I just stamped. So you're able to go in and add a second color. I did this using the pink Gumball powder once again, and then I just pushed all the excess back into the jar. This made a really pretty look in real life, I found, and it doesn't do it justice in the photography, unfortunately. I've gone ahead and add this to a card base. I'm also using some 3D foam dots here from scrapbook.com in order to add this to the front of my card. It says forever and ever in really small writing. I wanted to keep things really simplistic on this card because the focal point is that flower and I didn't want to distract from it. So this sentiment seemed perfect because it's so fine and dainty and pretty, and just adding that to the front of the card gives it such a simple look. So here's one final look at this card here before moving on to my next technique, which is one of my favorites. I'm going to be using Perfect Pearls with an embossing folder. Now this embossing folder came with my Gemini Junior die cutting machine, but you can use any embossing folder that you like. It should have a nice raised look. I think the 3D texture plates, I believe they're called, they're embossing folders but in 3D, will work best for this, but any embossing folder really will do. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm so lightly with my hand covering the panel. It's a black cardstock with Versamark. Because I'm going so light, it's actually only getting onto the embossed areas. And I'm using a textured cardstock, a black cardstock from Tonic, and so you're gonna see some of the lines showing up as well. Now once again, grabbing some of the Perfect Pearls, I'm using Perfect Gold this time, and I am going over the areas that I've added the Versamark ink to. It's going to cover the whole background. I think looking at this with the black cardstock's absolutely gorgeous when it's all finished. Don't forget to set that with some water, or you can actually use some finishing spray as well if you want to go ahead and spray that outside with the adhesive, with the aerosol can, but I don't have any of that, so I just spray it with water. Next up, I just need to add the sentiment. So I've grabbed a piece of Harvest Gold cardstock from Tonic Studios, and I grabbed some double-sided adhesive from scrapbook.com, and I'm going to add this to the back of my cardstock. Now, the sentiment that I am going to be cutting out with my die cuts, the Birch Press Handwritten Love, is very fine. So by adding this double-sided adhesive onto the back, I don't have to worry later about having to glue this sentiment. It's going to come off like a sticker. So here's a final look at how that card turned out. I absolutely love all the textures on that one. Now I'm going in now with a watercolor with Perfect Pearls. Did you know that you can turn these into a liquid? I used some watercolor cardstock here, and I'm going to be die cutting this beautiful die cut from Poppy Stamps called Graceful Heart die. Here it is, and then I'm going to just cut that out with my watercolor card. Now you don't have to do this technique with a die cut at all. You could do it just a whole watercolor panel if you want and do this as a wash. So I'm just going to add some of the pigment powders here onto my glass mat. You could add these onto an acrylic block too if you don't have a glass mat, or something that's non-porous like the back of a stamp, the plastic part that it comes on. Then all you need to do is just add water to these. So I'm going to grab my spray bottle and I'm going to spray them several times so that they become liquidy, and then you can pick them up with your brush and watercolor. So I'm just going quickly here with 3 colors, Grape, Fizz, the pink Gumball, and the Perfect Pearls color, and I'm just adding it straight over top of the die cut. I'll then let it set to dry and it'll be ready to go when it's all finished, and I think this is my favorite one out of the cards that I've created. I have mounted that now to a black piece of cardstock. And coming on to the next technique, it's a Perfect Pearls spray. So there's a couple ways that you can do this. So you can go ahead and add the Perfect Pearls to your surface, spray it with some water, and then flick it from a paintbrush. This is just how you would use it with paint as well if you wanted to make paint into a spray. What you can also do is you can take a spray bottle and fill it with water and add Perfect Pearls to the mix and use it as a shimmer and spray it directly on. So this way I get nice big blots of spray, and if you use it as a shimmer, it's a lot more subtle. So one of the things that I love to keep in my stash is a spray bottle with some Perfect Pearls in it to just give a pearlized spray to some die cuts or a finish on a card. Here's a final look when I was all done. The only thing I did off screen was I white heat embossed the I'm Yours from the scrapbook.com X's and O's stamp set. The next technique that I'm doing is a tone on tone with Perfect Pearls. So what I'm doing this time is, instead of stamping with the typical Versamark ink, I mean, you can stamp it with the typical Versamark ink if you want, is I'm going to stamp this with regular dye ink this time. I'm using powder blue ink from Gina K Designs and stamping directly onto my paper. If you find you're not quite quick enough, because this will dry quite quickly, you could of course double stamp it over top with Versamark ink as well. But if you work quickly, you should be able to get a nice perfect pearls over top of your dye ink. So it gives it a tone-on-tone look in the sense that you stamped in blue and then you added the perfect pearls in blue. So you give it a nice little shimmer when it's all finished. I think this is an amazing card for a masculine card. It's so simple, the font isn't too feminine, you've got the blue color. It's a perfect Valentine's Day card for your significant other. I also thought I would make this one for my boyfriend, and I'm using the My Funny Valentine Scrapbook.com stamp set, which is hilarious and works so well for our relationship because we're not really the mushy-gushy type. So when I stamped it on there, for example, it says, here's the obligatory sweet, overly mushy, extremely sentimental Valentine's Day card I'm supposed to give ya. I think that's super cute. So mounting it onto a card base, and then it's all finished.
Thank you so much everyone for watching today's video. I will be uploading more videos in the next couple of weeks and I'm looking forward to interacting with you and reading all of your comments. I do try to respond to each and every one of them, so if you have any questions at all, please leave them below. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.